Hello again, and welcome to this session of small, medium business strategy, marketing, and brand session. Today, I have an interview with a gentleman I've known for a number of years. His name is Steve Byers. And Steve Byers is going to talk to us about what he has been doing with his company over the past 15 to 20 years, and how he has grown his business and how he has been able to adapt and change through all this chaos that we've been experiencing. So in this next session, I'm going to start turning on start going through our slides. So today's interview is with Steve Byers on continuous growth and change. And my name is Frank Spivak. And for more than 30 years, I've helped organizations enhance their image through brand, engage their customers through marketing, and enrich their businesses through strategy. Over the years, I've been president, chief marketing officer, director, senior management team, writer. I'm presently a writer and author, have been for a number of years, speaker, trainer, coach, consultant, a lifelong learner, which is another lesson that you'll be hearing from Steve Byers as well, and a motorcycle rider and trainer. So today we're going to go through this interview that I recorded earlier with Steve, and I hope you enjoy it. And we'll come with we'll do a summary at the end. Hello again. This is Frank Spivak, and we're going to be talking about change in our strategy, marketing, and brand workshop here. And today I have as a guest EnergyLogic, one of the nation's largest energy rating and services companies, based in Colorado and with offices in Hawaii. They serve builders, developers, architects, and others in all facets of building industry and sustainability. They also offer a software development arm that has been at the forefront of developing tools that have advanced the entire industry. And I can say that some of those tools are truly extraordinary. And I saw them a few years ago, and I imagine they're even better as they are today. Steve graduated from the Air Force Academy and flew C-130s. He also has a master's degree in public administration. He and his wife of 30 years have 2 grown children. He's an avid runner and a lover of craft beer. Excellent. I'm more partial to bourbons and whiskeys, but craft beer is always fun to experiment with.
Yeah, well, I'm not against bourbons and whiskeys either.
So, Steve, thank you very much for taking part in this. And let's open this up by explaining a little bit more about EnergyLogic, because I know that it started out as just as a home energy rating company many years ago, but it has evolved over time, and you do so much more than that. So if you could explain a little bit more about it.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. And first of all, thanks for having me on. It's always exciting to talk to old friends and talk about business, which is something I never thought in my early days that was something that I'd really like to talk about, but I sure do. Yeah, so EnergyLogic, as we are today, is different and the same from where we were. EnergyLogic started in 2006, merger of our little tiny company we had with our former partner Robbie Schwartz, his little tiny company, and so we put 2 tiny companies together and still had a tiny company. And so in 2006, there were 8 of us, and today we're just over 80 people, and doing different things. And I'll try to stay focused. And of course, that's your job, Frank. Keep it from running off the rails and going down too many rabbit holes. But I might go down and come back up. We'll see. So yeah, but energy rating is still the foundation of what the company does. Now, that itself has changed dramatically from 15, 16 years ago, what a rating used to be, to what it is today. Whereas, with the code compliance aspect of the work we do is So much more different now. It's it's baked into code in a lot of places. The Energy Star, DOE Zero Energy Ready, Lead for Homes, all these things that use the rating as a foundation. That's a really meaningful part of our work. But yes, we do a lot of other things as well, and kind of always have. It's one of the things that I don't know, it keeps me energized, engaged to be always thinking about what's next. It's a little bit of a shadow on a light, that can be both pro and con company. But yes, so try to briefly hit all the things that we do. At the Foundation of Energy Ratings, we do HVAC design now. That's a relatively new thing for us, but relatively new. We've been doing that for say 3 or 4 years, getting better at it, kind of slowly but surely figuring that all out. The software part of our company has been kind of foundational for us in a way, because that's something that we had started even before we were EnergyLogic. We were starting down the road of building a software to run the company. That software is called Dash. Now it used to be called iRate, and now it's called Dash. That's been a long time that we changed that. And it is the backbone of our company. We sell that as a subscription to other energy rating companies around the country. That's a software that it has been in a continuous development mode. Always has been. We're always looking to make that better. And then the other things that we built out of that part of the company, we built the quality assurance mechanism for looking at all the ratings for several years. We licensed that to ResNet. That tool is finding new life in other contexts that I won't get into right now, but because we own that code, we're finding new ways to use that tool as well. And then we kind of as a tangential thing, again, both a good and a bad thing. Sometimes we built a platform to assess the health of housing markets around the country. Frank, I don't even know if you ever saw that tool. So it's a software tool called Housing Tides. And what it does is we took the top 50 markets in the United States, and we built an index to assess the health of each of those housing markets. And there's a forecasting tool built into it that is predicts single-family, multifamily housing starts across those markets. And we're an IBM Watson partner, and use machine learning to analyze what's being written about housing in all of those markets and assign a sentiment score for positive and negative on every piece of media that's written. It's a really cool tool. We've done a lot of different things with, and now it's entering a new phase of life too that I can't actually talk about, but we'll be able to soon. Maybe I'll get back in touch with you when that is something I can publicly talk about. But it's exciting what's going to happen there. So we've always done these other things, and there's others. I could take up the whole time by talking about all the other little things that we have done and are doing, and exploring. But that's kind of where we are today, and I think that's part of our DNA is to always be thinking that we've never thought of ourselves as just a rating company. So
yeah, and so your role in a lot of this, and certainly you've had the partnership with Harvey Schwartz. You don't have it now. You have a management team. You have a number of people, and you've got 80 people.
Yeah.
So what do you see as your main role in moving the company forward?
Yeah, and so that you're right that it has evolved over the years, but not dramatically in a lot of ways. Of course, when you're the CEO of an 8-person company, that's one thing, and then you're the CEO of an 80-person company, and it's a different thing. And then you look at companies that are 808,000 and 80,000, they're like, oh my gosh, that's a really different animal. And but for me, the one thing that I've always been in this company is I'm the head cheerleader, and I really enjoy that role. This is my life's work, and I love this company deeply. So I'm head cheerleader. I work with the management, the leadership team really closely. though we've been together as a leadership team for quite a while now. They're all people who've been in the company for a while, so they don't need me to supervise them for sure. And, they largely don't need me to manage them. We are a peer group very much, and that's how we've always run things too. So yeah, I lead the leadership team, but they don't need me to do so, is maybe a good way of putting that. I'm deeply involved with this dev team, as you might imagine. And that's been both in like thinking about, where we're going today, but also in thinking about what's tomorrow. Some business development, beyond the next, 6 months or year, proposals that are going out today. What do we want to be doing? Where do we want to take the company? Which obviously has big overlap to the leadership team. That's largely what I do. So
cheerleader and idea man, kind of.
I think that's fair, and I'd like to believe I've gotten better at being the idea man, in the sense of not having less ideas, but knowing that I can't chase them all down.
A very valuable lesson.
Yeah, well, hard one. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So with all of this taking place, then, and I'm sure that the business certainly has evolved over time, and we both worked through the whole TARP and ERA funding era. Did any of that? I mean, you certainly had your primary mission to take care of and do ratings for houses, and that didn't really change much. But the scale of it changed dramatically when all the funds came in through ERA, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act.
Yeah.
Then subsequently, 2 years later, when they all evaporated. So
yeah.
How did you deal with those?
Well, the ERA was an opportunity wrapped up in a crisis for us. And I'm gonna try to bounce it back and forth between what happened then and what's happening now a little bit, because they're different. The Great Recession, the bottom really truly fell out of the market, for home building. It was a home construction driven crisis. It took a lot of people to get it as wrong as we did, but so it wasn't just builders by any means, but it was construction, related or foundation. So when all that happened, so as we were at that point in time not a company that had such great foresight as to see this coming much further than anybody else. We had just a little tiny bit, because we, again, software data driven company. We could see things were going in bad directions that like 2 months before everybody else could see it, and that's not really enough to do a lot with. But so then like I said, with funding that came in, it didn't help, didn't do anything really for the foundation of the company, and that ratings, because homes don't get built, they don't get ratings, right? So but we were able, because we've always been pretty nimble, we were able to rapidly pivot. There was an opportunity that came up for us around low-income weatherization to partner with another company that's going after a big contract, and we won it. And to a little bit, it felt like the dog that caught the car, because we, that was not, we certainly know our building science, but that was a new area for us, and we had to. At the time that happened, the company was 40 people. We had to, basically in 6 weeks, stand up a company of 40 more people, with trucks and everything else. And so, we got lucky, but it was a lot of hard work too, making that luck happen. And then the other piece of what happened in RL was money flowed into training, for HERS and PPI and things like that. We were a training organization. So we really ramped that up too quickly, so we were able to pivot, nicely, and to take advantage of those things in a way that, made it so that, really, well, we didn't ever lay anyone off. In either we never laid anyone off for business reasons, for business decline reasons in the history of the company in almost 17 years. I'm pretty proud of that. So, so that's kind of what that piece was about.
And so, do you see any of the? Certainly, the construction part of it is not quite at the core of where we're at right now, but we certainly see building declining.
Yeah.
And previously, building costs were skyrocketing. The material cost clause in a lot of the home building contracts started getting triggered when they usually haven't been. How is that? How have you been able to work through that?
Yeah, so that's what I was sort of getting at before. The pandemic's been really different, and now as we move into this, potential recession, really, they're very different for us. The pandemic has been difficult not because business was bad per se. In fact, there was that when the pandemic hit immediately, there was the deer in the headlights moment for everybody. But then the builders really rapidly went, okay, we're fine, at least at that time, right? And let's build as fast as we can because we want to get these houses that we've already got going done. That was the immediate response. We got holes in the ground. We need to build this as fast as we can before it gets any worse, right? And then immediately the demand for housing just skyrocketed because so many people wanted homes and wanted out of multifamily situations. So it's been this strange ebb and flow in that for sure. So while the recession was, the Great Recession was, this very, unitary mono, thing we had to deal with, the pandemic's really been an exercise in chaos management, right? So, we've got people out in the field, right? Well, the company was able to say, us office folks, here I am today. And, home office, we're getting back to the office. That's a whole different story. Maybe we'll touch on that later. But, we all just went, but all the field folks, they still had to go to the field. And, they got COVID like everybody else did. And the impact of having to deal with COVID and all the uncertainty, that was a very different thing to have to deal with. The business case, they built more homes. Things have gone up and up and up. But yes, as you said, supply chain stuff wreaking havoc with our clients for sure. And anything that wreaks havoc with our clients is wreaking havoc with us. So you've got a dozen homes waiting for windows, right? And then the windows all come in, and then they get done. It's like, hey, you've got a dozen houses for you. Well, that's not easy for anybody to deal with, whether it's the builder, the trade, or folks like us doing inspections. So that was really tricky. The other parts of the pandemic were really different. Is for us, the thing we're focused on all the time, and still today, is the impact on the foundation of our company, which has been our culture. We pride ourselves on our culture. We are different, than a lot of companies. Not every company. We're not unique. Not every company is unique, but we're not unique in the idea that we really care about our people and we put them, first, in most ways. And this has been very, very hard on our culture. And going into the pandemic, so I'll give you an example. Concrete data again. We like data, right? So we have long measured our employee happiness and satisfaction with different tools over time. But going into the pandemic, it was at one place, and months for 6-8 months into the pandemic, it just slowly increased employee satisfaction with the company.
Wow, really?
Because we were putting them first and we were caring about them and very much trying to do the right thing in a context in which nobody really knew what the right thing really was, but we were trying awful hard, right? So that's, now we're getting to the place where that's a little bit less true. It hasn't dropped off in a little tiny bit because people are burnt out. And what do we do now? All right, now we're in some sort of a new normal, which it's a terrible phrase, but it's true. And when does it become not new anymore? I don't know. But, we're still grappling with, how do we get back to the office? In what way do we get back to the office? It's not going to be the old way. What is the new way? How do we, and primarily, whether we go back to the office or not, how do we get back to where we've got the culture, mix that makes us special? That's hard. So
I can understand that. You got that because again, you're back to the fact that you have some knowledge workers, which could work anywhere.
Yep.
But you have the people in the field that they really don't have a choice.
Yeah, and they're kind of field knowledge workers for us, right? So yeah, so that's been tough, and then so I kind of too soon to tell what the long-term impact is on the company in a lot of ways. So one of the things that we did do that's different, just because we're a different size and able to think about some things that we couldn't when we were that size, was we made 2 acquisitions. One, definitely when we were in the pandemic, that was clear. One, literally, I kid you not, was the day that the first day the stock market tanked. My wife and I were driving, because my wife's the president of the company as well. We're driving to close the deal on our first acquisition. Driving in the car, listening to the radio, white knuckled. She's saying, "Should we turn around?" No. And so, that wasn't, we knew, you kind of knew something was happening. We didn't know how bad it would be. And both acquisitions have turned out great. One was a very small company doing similar stuff to us in Boulder. We didn't have a big presence, so we bought them. And then the second one was how we ended up with Hawaii offices. Again, that was much more of they were both very strategic. One was to get us into a market and a very custom home segment that we didn't have a great handle on. And the second was, it wasn't the geography of Hawaii that was so much, that was good for us. But what that company also did in terms of higher end sustainability consulting and services that we want, that's part of our strategic direction. So that was really good. And it's turned out really well, fortunately, in both cases. So that was something we couldn't do before. But there was more strategy to that than we were able to pull off before. And then just things like now, where we are now, moving forward. We've got done a few things. We made some, organizational changes that really don't have that much to do with it. But one thing we did is created a new position called our Innovation and Initiatives Manager, and it's exactly what it sounds like. And those are initiatives and innovations, both internal and external. And and this is a really new position. One of the first things that this person's been tasked with is create a list of things that are kind of like, to use a recession term, shovel ready, right?
Yeah.
So what are shovel ready projects that we could do so that if we do start to see the kind of downturn that we're thinking, again, we don't need to lay people off. We push people over into trying to get things off the ground, that they're ready. They're ready to go. We're not now starting, okay, let's think about this. They're primed as we can have them, so that as we start to see a decrease in demand for our core services, we can shift some people into these things and try to make them go. It doesn't mean they'll succeed, but at least we're more ready to tackle some things we wanted to do, and you're too busy to do things that you want to do a lot of times, which has been a story for us for the past 2 years. So I guess in some ways we're trying to plan our luck more right now.
Well, that's that. Yeah, and that kind of leads to the next question. And how do what's your planning process? Right, you obviously you came up with this initiative and innovation manager position, which I think is actually really cool, and more companies would probably benefit by having someone that can just let loose, right, and just kind of spitball ideas on where the company can go. And it relieves a little bit of the burden off of the CEO and president to do a lot of the other stuff. So how do you go about all this planning, given all some of the uncertainty that's taking place?
Yeah. When the market crashed in both cases, we reacted quickly. But as for how much planning there was, pre-planning there was around it, not much. And one of the ironies, not ironies, kind of predictable. When we were the first go around with the recession, when we were 40 people, we were more nimble then, right? That goes to figure. And that's one of my primary concerns right now, is making sure that we maintain as much agility as we can as we grow. and that's tough for any business. At the beginning, like going into the Great Recession, we were just beginning to form a real leadership team. So we weren't gelled and cohesive and all those things that we have today. We didn't have that. Now we're in the place of having a well-established, comfortable leadership team that's worked together, been through the Great Recession together, all those sort of things. So we're less in a reactive mode. Although the pandemic, has just been so much of reaction. Because the recession, think about the recession, like, okay, you've lost business, okay, one problem. The pandemic's thrown so many different problems at us that just forced reaction because we didn't know, nobody could see it coming, right? Some people maybe saw them coming, but even the supply chain stuff, we probably should, a lot of people, more of us should have seen that coming, and we did, right? So, we're a lot of things like that. So, one of the things is always trying to grow. So, in our skill set, especially right now in our leadership team and our management, I'll talk about that in just a second. So right now, just for example, we're using Good to Great, be one of the business classics of all time. Using that as a study platform to teach us what it can, which is a lot, right? And you're really trying to move from where we were in a recession into the pandemic, to being predictable stuff versus chaotic stuff. And for us, being bigger also means more planning. The bigger you are, the more planning has to happen for sure. That's pretty obvious, right? But our managers have to be both involved, and they have to be involved in the decision making to a degree, for sure, bought in. But they also have to be able to execute. And one of the oddities of our industry is it's pretty niche, right? So for most industries, you'd say like, well, you're a subject matter expert, and then you add on a layer of management training and expertise, and now you're a manager. Well, we have subject matter experts, and there's no one in this industry that's got any management, experience. It just doesn't exist. So we're having to build that ourselves, which is sort of fun, sort of good for us in the sense that we're so culture centric that it's just necessitated by that. So and then for me, like thinking about how to stay ahead, like something like this new position is part of that, because you're spot on. A lot of that felt need to be the one thinking about like what next and what not. So this new position is really, kind of my co-pilot on that, and somebody that I work really well with. I already know that, and yeah, it's think about things, run them through a quick process to assess what we should be focused on, because we have a long list. Again, we can't focus on all, we can't execute on all of them. So what are the top 2 or 3 things we're going to be working on at any one time? So that's kind of that. And, there's a guy, a business writer I really like called Daniel Burris. He's got a sort of his term is the anticipatory organization. A lot of good stuff there. I've got a long list of people that I owe credit to for over the many years of reading things. Oh, I love that idea, and that's a good one too. So, but it's hard, right? This is hard stuff. We're animals. We're wired for now. Not tomorrow. Not even even squirrels, like they think 1 winter ahead.
Right. That's good. That's a good way of saying it. Well, but I think knowing your organization over the years, and it sounds like you're continuing this, is that you certainly are a continuous learner, and that you encourage that with your employees, pretty much at every stage they're in, whether they're just raters or not, they still need to know more. There's always more to learn to be better. And then now you also have that management layer, the leadership layer, getting them to grasp some of these concepts. The good to great stuff is fantastic. Those are wonderful things. And it sounds like you're encouraging that throughout the organization.
Absolutely. And it's one of the challenges, and especially like I said, over the past couple of years, we've been so busy just trying to keep up with the demand that, the learning has been less than any of us would have liked. So we're trying to play. One of the things that we, I've said continuously, it's like when this slowdown happens, it's going to be one of our opportunities, to catch up on some of the learning that we maybe haven't been doing because we've been trying to keep up. So, yeah.
So, what kind of advice would you have for business owners? And some of it, could be in general or based on where we're at now. So what kind of advice would you have when you look at change or I have this philosophy. So let me go a little bit in a different direction. I have this philosophy that, and because I've been through this and you've been through this, there's a minor crisis seems to be every 3 to 5 years and a major crisis every 8 to 12 years. And we always seem to remember the time when things are getting better, and we forget about the times before and during. And so what kind of advice would you have to other business owners when it comes to trying to, I don't want to say anticipate change, but I don't have a better way of phrasing that.
Yeah. So as far as anticipating change, I mean, how much time do any of us spend, as leaders of companies, thinking about what is likely to be that thing that's going to, there's your known knowns and your unknown knowns and your unknown unknowns, but how much time do we really spend? And, and I say I should spend more time on that too, even though I think I spend more maybe than some, but we can all spend more time. And as leaders, that's critical. Part of it is knowing, of course, change is inevitable, what the nature of that change is, sometimes good, sometimes not so good, right? But, we've got to know, each of us has to know where we want to go with our companies to some place, right? Where do you want to go with your company? What kind of growth do you want and why you want it? Because you specifically asked me about leaders, owners, companies, and whatnot. So why do you want to get to that place? I think that's really important to know. And you can change that destination over time. You don't have to, because certainly where I thought we would go and where we're going to be, 15 years ago is not where we are today. Partly because of the things that happen that are exogenous to the company, I have control over that, right? So it's like you're going on a trip and you're planning to go to one city and you decide you're going to change and go to this city, right? But it was a plan, and without knowing where you're going, there's funny quotes about that, of course, but
sure.
So I think that then knowing where what is your destination point, then and how firmly are you holding to that, and do you need to hold to that possibly? That's going to inform a lot of what you may do in reaction to things that happen outside of your control, and the things that are inside the control. Then you absolutely can bake into getting to that destination. So I don't know. It felt almost a little bit like a word salad there for you, but
sure. Well, I appreciate that, because I think I talk to business owners and they say, I ask them, what do you want to do with your business? Oh, I want to grow it. Okay, well, that's a pretty big word. How about narrowing that down a little bit? Why do you want to grow? Where do you want to grow? Where do you want to get to? And many of them stumble on that because it's the mentality of, I got to have more. Well, more what?
Right. I feel really lucky in that Lynn and I, my wife, known where we wanted to get to from a money perspective, because ultimately there's some money is a piece of the equation for virtually everybody, unless you just don't need money. So we've known what our number was for a while, And that has been helpful to us in getting to where we want to go. And we're getting close. And our direction is employee ownership. And that's where we want to go. That is our plan to exit strategy. And, things could happen for sure, but that's absolutely where we have every intention of going. And so knowing that, knowing our number, it gives us a couple of, pretty firm guideposts, to direct it.
Yeah, so that, I appreciate that. That's knowing where you're going, why you're going. I think that's always a big, that helps as a motivator, right?
It really does.
That why.
Totally. I mean, for us, the employee ownership is a big part of the why. We're just very big believers in that, and that changes, how we would go about virtually everything. From how we're going to educate people in the company on leadership and management, to how we're going to do an exit, to how we're going to, continue to nurture the culture. It informs all of those things.
Yeah, and that's, there's also a kind of thing that I like to say is that there really is no success without a successor, and understanding how to effectively replace yourself, right? That's what you're going for, trying to figure out, getting yourself set, but then you can't just say, okay, well, I'm leaving tomorrow.
Right. No, no, for sure. You can do that, I guess, but I think it rarely works out well. So no, that's like one of the, exciting pieces for me over the next few years is the building of the remaining, few pieces that we need to get to the place where we're really set up for success in employee ownership. And then, after the execution of that, I will be continuing on and, nurturing that while my successor, whoever that might be, does come on. And that's going to be that's a big change management one, right? Bringing on, especially when you go from a founder CEO to the next person, that could be a big challenge from everything that I've read. So, but I'm excited about the challenge of that. Yeah.
Oh, good. So, as we finish off here, I thank you so much for doing this, and and I wish you all the best of success and where you're going. And EnergyLogic has always been a stellar company ever since I knew you guys, and you have a great crew that I've worked with over the years. So it's been marvelous. Is there any other last minute advice or last bit of advice that you would have? Because you also have a very unique culture. Any last minute advice for other owners?
Gosh, it's a little bit, to me, it's like when somebody's about to have their first child, and almost everybody says one thing to it. I knew really expectant parents who this their first kid would get a lot of sleep, right? And it's like, and I've always hated that, because yes, true, yes, that's going to be part of it, but oh my God, it's like, enjoy the ride. I mean, it's the greatest. I mean, parenthood is one of the greatest rides there is. And to me, owning and running a business is one of the greatest rides there is. Yeah, it's got this, and it's got some of those too. Yeah, but keep touching. Keep trying to touch back and find the thing that made you passionate about starting a company, going into business for yourself in the first place, because it's a privilege to get to do it, so I don't know, I'm a very I would say I'm a very glasses 3/4 full kind of person, so some days 7/8.
Well, that's terrific. I absolutely think that's if you're not passionate about it, then what do you
because what do we mostly deal with? You as a consultant coach and me as a leader, like mostly we deal with what's going wrong, right? And that does have the tendency to grind you down a little bit. So step back sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's marvelous advice. Thank you very much. So again, thank you very much for the opportunity to do this. And again, all the best of success to you and your family and the business.
Thanks, Frank. It was a real pleasure.
Great. Hello. So I hope you enjoyed that interview with Steve Byers. Steve is, as he mentioned there at the end, he is definitely a 3/4 to 7/8 full kind of guy, and he's always been that way. And a very interesting guy, and always a joy to talk to. So I'm going to summarize some of the things that we covered during this interview. And he mentioned that he started a tiny company and merged with a tiny company and still had a tiny company, but now he has 80 employees. And so that's over a 15, 17-year change or growth. That's pretty aggressive. And even with that, he continuously explores opportunities. As you heard, he had made some strategic acquisitions during the pandemic. So he had plotted a course, he knew where he wanted to go, and he continued to go ahead with those opportunities. So as you're growing your company, where do you want to grow? Why do you want to grow there? And those are the things that will help you decide where things fit in when you have those kinds of opportunities. So Steve's role, head cheerleader and to be an idea person, but he has learned that you can't realize every single idea. Every idea has an ability to change the company, but you need to be judicious. You need to learn a little bit more about what's going on, and then you can make those decisions on which idea to move forward. He runs his company with a peer group leadership team. So he obviously doesn't have to supervise or manage. He is providing direction, but the group has been together for a long time so that they are working with each other as a very cohesive leadership team. The housing crisis back in 2008, 2009 was an opportunity. It was an opportunity wrapped up in a crisis, as he said. They were small enough at the time, 40 people, to be able to pivot. But at the same time, they took a bold move that paid off, and then they moved from 40 people to 80 people in very short order. And even with that, and then with the ERA funding that had dropped off a couple of years later, they still kept every employee they had. They've never laid anyone off for strictly business decline reasons. Back then, the housing crisis was a really singular issue that was easily identified, and things could be done to work with it, through it, and around it. The pandemic is certainly, as he mentioned, more study in chaos management. So many things coming out of so many different directions. It's hard to say what you should be doing, because you're being hit with so many different things that you become locked in this reactive mode. And throughout all this thing, it's been hard on the culture of the company, because he's always put people first. And employee satisfaction actually went up during the pandemic because of how they treated their employees. And as we've seen in many news reports, the reason that some of his employee satisfaction is down is really just due to burnout. It's one of those things that we have a difficult time trying to disengage, so to give ourselves time. We see it all the time in the first responders, our nurses and doctors. There's so much to do. There's so much that they want to do, but at the same time, they wind up burning out in the process. So during the pandemic, they planned more strategic moves through the acquisition of two companies, and still followed through with that because they knew where they wanted to go, knew where they wanted to grow, and these acquisitions fit that bill. Something that really hit me that was a great conversation piece was the fact that they created a new position, innovation and initiatives manager. The idea being to create some shovel ready, using an old era term of during that recession, shovel ready projects that would be able to get started quickly and easily. And it's a way to plan your luck. One of the things that happens when you start developing plans and alternatives and developing ideas is that it helps you to plan your luck as you move forward. And even though he's at 80 people, he understands the ability to maintain as much agility as possible as they grow. Obviously, the more people that you have, the more things that take place, and it becomes a bit of a challenge to be able to pivot your organization. But he's always looking at ideas that could help the business. He's a continuous learner. He encourages employees to be continuous learner. This is certainly something that, in trying to anticipate how to deal with change in the future, being a continuous learner, you have opens up more possibilities and more luck to make things happen for the better. The pandemic has hampered that continuous learning process a little bit, but he's already stated that when things start to slow down a little bit, that's the time that's an opportunity to learn. And some of the resources that he talked about were Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. Jim Collins also is the author of Built to Last. These books came out originally in the 90s. There are some things about it that talk about the core things that make companies transcend, go from good to great, and last throughout history, business history. Daniel Burris's The Anticipatory Organization. That's a new one for me. I'm going to pick that one up and see what that has to say. Advice to others: know where you want your company to go. Understand why it is that you want to get to that place, and knowing where you are going and why is a great motivator. It's the there are a lot of Yogi Berra isms about destinations and things like that, but having that direction, that plan, even if it's vague, something to get you going in the right direction, those are the great motivators to keep you moving. Owning and running a business is the greatest ride there is, and enjoy the ride. And find the thing that made you start the business and reach back to it every once in a while. It can be discouraging at times. This pandemic has really challenged a lot of business owners and questioning what they're doing. So go back, think about what it is that, why you started it. I had some sessions a while ago with talking about why you started the business. And it's when you can recapture that idea, why you started it, that can really help you move forward and make better decisions. Closing thought, that was not caught during the interview. One of the things that when we finished talking a little bit more with Steve, his comment was, running a business is like solving a Rubiks Cube. There is joy in lining up people, product, and profit the right way. And I thought that was absolutely great. It's unfortunate that I didn't have the recording on at the time, but just an absolute perfect sentiment to close this session. So I want to thank you for taking part in this. Certainly an offer that I have for you is that to give you a 60-minute one-to-one session to help you get unstuck, to help you move forward. The process is answering 3 questions. We schedule a time, and when we're done with that 60 minutes, we'll provide you with at least 2 ideas that you can use to immediately put into action to move forward, break free, and be confident in your next move. And just visit frankspivak.com/unstuck and get that started. With that, I want to thank you for attending this session. Again, my name is Frank Spivak. My specialties are strategy, marketing, and brand. And I do that through coaching, training, and consulting. And I would like to be your partner in success. So thank you for attending and hope to see you next time.